Atari's last console was mocked by nearly everyone, but the few people that did manage to pick it up noticed that it had some pretty darn good games. I am the Game Collector and this is Second Opinion Games, and today we look at an Atari Jaguar showcase.
Second Opinion Games.
Starting with one of the most well-known exclusive titles, it's Aliens vs. Predator, a first-person shooter that looked darn good for its time, and you could even play as the Predator himself, where you're just a free-for-all trying to wipe out everyone. You could stay cloaked in invisibility, but then you'll lose some honor points, and you want to unlock the honor points because then you'll be able to use your stronger weapons as you play through the game. However, you're quite vulnerable against the Space Marines when you're trying to kill them when you're visible, so it's a really tough trade-off here. You could also play as the aliens themselves, putting your cocoons inside of the Space Marines, so when you die, you just pop up right then and there where that cocoon was placed, so that could be back a couple of levels. And you could play as the Space Marines themselves, always trying to up your security clearance to make it farther into the game, and eventually kill the alien queen. This is also a very much an action horror game, because those predators can just scare the crap out of you because of how overpowered they are, and a single death could send you back to the very beginning of the game itself. So this is extremely difficult and a heck of a lot of fun, even though that map always spins with you as you walk through, making it kind of hard to make it to the next level, and the fact that it runs at like 15 frames per second. But if you can get past those minor nitpicks, this is a terrific game. But some people think that Doom was the best first-person shooter for the console, especially if you played it on the Super Nintendo or the 32X. It was pretty much garbage compared to this. The only nitpick I have about the game is the fact that it's actually quite quiet, in the fact that there's no rocking music tunes in the background while I slaughter these demons. Using a shotgun is extremely satisfying. There's also plenty of weapons to play through this game with, and I really hate collecting keycards, but it was a product of its time. But one of the coolest features about this game is that you could play co-op if your friend also happened to have an Atari Jaguar, or you just picked up a bunch of them from the bargain bin back in the day because they got discounted down to like $30 before you knew it, and then picking up the link cable and having 2 copies of Doom to play co-op or even death battle throughout this game is just superb, compared to the PlayStation where it was $300, but the link cable was a little bit better made. Overall, this is a great version of Doom and is one you have to try. Too violent for you? Well then try a puzzle game like Flip Out. This was another Atari Jaguar exclusive where you just flip tiles up in the air. As you play through the game, it becomes much more difficult, and it already starts kind of difficult. You kind of have to rewire your brain just to play it. By the very last level, it's just frustratingly insane. I'm not even going to go into that. If you want to, I did a full review of this game as well as every other game for this system. So just dig through my archives and find all of that. But Flip Out is a fairly fun puzzle game if your brain could even handle it. While we're talking about Jag exclusives, check out Trevor Mcfur in the Crescent galaxy. This is also one of the very few launch titles for the console. It's a bit of an average horizontal shooter with one gimmick. That is that there are tons of weapons at your disposal, and the pickups happen frequent and often. So don't be afraid to use them non-stop because you can't take them with you. Every single item is attached to the number pad, so switching back and forth between all of your massive weapons is really easy to do. And there's also some very useful ones like Invincibility. So if you're at a boss battle, it's extremely easy to make yourself invincible and just go inside and blow it up. So making it through the levels aren't too darn difficult as long as you remember to use your power-ups, because that's what they're there for God's sakes. Also, the graphics here don't seem to be that much better than what the Super Nintendo can do, but I can definitely tell they put a lot of hard work into this game, even if it was sort of rushed to market, and it definitely doesn't show you what the true potential of the Jaguar was. Another horizontal shooter is Defender 2000. Now, if you're a fan of the arcade version of Defender, well, it's pretty much here, but there is some slight changes. There's also the game Defender Plus, which is a much more psychedelic version of Defender. But of course, Defender 2000 is here with all 100 levels that are guaranteed to suck your life away. Luckily, the music will keep you awake because the bass is thumping. There's also a type of Pong here which I call Seizure Pong, because if you can play it without having a seizure, well then you win, my friends. But the very best feature about Defender 2000 is that you can unlock this super cheaty thing in Defender Plus where you play as Flossie the sheep, just destroying things and saving llamas. That's right, this is where the channel even gets its love of sheep from. Good old Flossie here, and just playing this game without smiling is nearly impossible. While we're on the classic remakes, check out Breakout 2000. For better or worse, it's Breakout on the Atari Jaguar with some slightly upgraded graphics. Now, this game does get better the more you play. At first, it does seem really simple and boring, but yeah, just trust me, hang with it, and it won't be too long before there's some crazy stuff going on. This is also one of those games that is much better played two-player, and that's where the Jaguar really shined, believe it or not. Almost every game for the system was multiplayer and is definitely much better played with a friend, especially something like this. Tempest 2000 is thought of as the killer app for the system. Now, Tempest also came out on the PlayStation 1 and the Sega Saturn, but I gotta say it plays the best on the Atari Jaguar. You can play the classic Tempest here, even though the music is definitely from the Tempest 2000 game. The Tempest 2000 game looks slightly better, but it has a lot more power-ups and particle effects that are in your face all the time. There's also some pretty cool first-person flying bonus stages. They're kind of boring if you think about it too long, but it does look fairly impressive. But my favorite part is Tempest Plus, because you can play co-op with a friend, and if you don't have a friend, you can just set it up so that AI droid is always just right beside you at all times to make you feel like you're playing with a friend. This is definitely the killer app that many people thought it was, and it is definitely one you have to have if you own a Jag. But the game that everyone did have was Cybermorph, and that's because it's a pack-in title, and it's what people think of when they think of Jag games. There are lots of polygons with a short draw distance, and really crappy frame rates blowing up stuff. But the controls here are actually quite good, and yes, that green face does show up to say things like good work every time you collect a data pod, and where did you learn to fly when you smash into a mountain. But you know what? After you get the hang of how the game is controlled, you will not smash into a mountain like at all, as long as you're not going too fast for your own good. There's also plenty of pickups here to make your ship more powerful, but don't think that you're gonna feel like a beast and plow through this game, because it's also painfully difficult. There's even huge boss battles as you start clearing some of these levels out, so this is actually one that you're gonna be playing for quite a long time because of the length of it and how difficult it is, if you could just get past that really short draw distance. iWar is another game that at the very first glance you just know it was made for the Atari Jaguar, but it is one that is often forgotten about. You play in a computer system as a tank, just running around blowing stuff up and collecting upgrades as you play through the game. If you only play the very first level, then you're probably gonna hate this. This is one of those games that really shines the more time and effort you put into it. It also has a really cool bonus stage where you get to fly your tank through a tunnel and collect more data pods to earn an extra life, and you're gonna need every life you could get because the very end boss of this game is guaranteed to suck away like 10 of them, because it's all about timing and rhythm, which is something that I don't really shine with. iWar is a terrific polygonal game for the Jag. And sticking with the polygons and the mech theme, we gotta go with Iron Soldier. It's a first-person shooter where you walk slowly around town and blow up everything in sight. Even the way the buildings explode is extremely satisfying. The more you play the game, the more weapons you unlock, like a Gatling gun, missiles, or even a railgun, which is my favorite to use because it pretty much one-shots like everything. Blowing apart helicopters is a heck of a lot of fun. Taking on other Iron Soldiers is insanely satisfying, and there's just something about this game that oozes Atari Jaguar charm from start to finish. It's only like 16 levels, and if you're playing on easy, you're probably gonna fly through it in no time, and you pretty much owe it to yourself to play this Jag classic. Another Jag classic is Kasumi Ninja, and not in a good way. This is known as one of the worst fighting games of all times, and I gotta say, yeah, it certainly feels like it. It was a blatant Mortal Kombat clone, but I don't even think I would call it that because it doesn't play like Mortal Kombat at all. It's just bad and janky from start to finish. Most people only know about Angus because he could shoot fireballs out of his dingus, and that's something kind of interesting. There's also some fatalities here that some of them are fairly cool. This is a just below average fighting game, and the only real reason to own it is because it came with a free headband. Yeah, that's it. But a game you might actually want to play is Power Drive Rally. Now, the graphics here at the time looked quite good, but what really impressed me was the announcer telling you about every corner right before they came up, so you know how hard or how light to take it. You're also trying to pick up money that might be on each stage as you drive around, because you have to maintain your vehicle. So do me a favor and save after every successful event, because otherwise it's going to be game over before you know it. There's also some skill challenges here that are just really hard to figure out at first, but later you'll probably get the hang of it. Unfortunately, this is one of the more harder to find games on the system, but it is definitely a fun racing experience. The action platformer Rayman was supposed to be the killer app exclusive for the system, but because Ubisoft knew that the Jag's life was very short-lived, they started rebuilding and remaking the game for the PlayStation 1, which it actually came out on that console first, even though it started its life as a Jaguar game. Now, even though the music in the PlayStation 1 version is far superior, the gameplay itself is better on the Atari Jaguar, because it was made with that system's limitations at the time. The controls are less cumbersome and the graphics still look beautiful. This would have definitely pushed some more console sales if it only would have came out earlier in the Jag's life. But the Jaguar has life after death because people are still pushing out a lot of homebrew games to this very day. And because I'm a big fan of asteroids, then Rebooteroids was my jam. There's 100 total levels to this game. Some of them feel like mini puzzles in themselves, and other ones just feel like massive action stages where you just try to clear the asteroids as fast as possible. To mix things up a little bit, there's some skill shot stages where you try to earn an extra life, and then you get thrown right back into the mix with all of the asteroids goodness, with some power-ups like extending your shot, or double shot, double damage, or even this shooting out of both ends type of deal that's going on. This is definitely the killer app homebrew title for the console, but it doesn't really scream Atari Jaguar that much. For that, I'm gonna have to turn to my last game, Club Drive. Now, to me, this is the quintessential Atari Jaguar game. Some people absolutely hate this game, and they're probably right because it's one of the worst games ever made. But if you can't hear it by the sound of my voice, I am smiling from ear to ear because this is also one of my favorite guilty pleasures of all times. Yes, the graphics are awful, and the sound effects are pretty bad too, but the music is kind of upbeat and a little catchy. There's also Easter eggs around every single corner, just like the Atari Jaguar itself tended to throw in, because every game has tons of cheat codes, and that's one of the best features about the system. And it's also just charming as all get out. Even with all the bugs, the frame rate, the glitches, and the massive polygons, I just keep on loving this game and the Atari Jaguar itself. That's why I think it best sums up the system in a nutshell. But of course, that's just my opinion. Thanks for watching. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. I had a great time making it, and I want to know what your guilty pleasure is. What game is really terrible, but you just love to play it? Let me know in the comment box down below, and also let me know what showcase video you guys want me to conquer next, because I have like every system, and I'm just trying to work my way through all of them, and I'm having a lot of fun while I do it. So until later, I will see you again, guys.